Chapter 471. Thousands of kilometers away from War City, on the second floor of a Stone City restaurant, a dozen tables were filled with guests and bustling business. More than a dozen tables were filled with cultivators who had come to eat and drink. At a table near the window, a skinny middle-aged man was sitting there with an indifferent expression. On his table were large and small jugs of wine, at least a dozen of them. This middle-aged man seemed to have an amazing capacity for liquor, but even after drinking so much, his face didn't turn red or his heart didn't skip a beat. His eyes were cold and gloomy as he sat on his seat and stared down at the pedestrians on the street below. Every time he saw a cultivator with slightly better strength, his gloomy eyes couldn't help emitting a cold light, as if he was a hungry beast that had encountered fresh meat and wanted to eat it alive. His face was filled with a look of struggle, hesitation, but after a long time, he gradually calmed down and couldn't help sighing, grabbing the jug in front of him and drinking again. "I'm starving to death," the middle-aged man muttered softly. His pair of shifty eyes roamed around the guests on the second floor. His throat was constantly emitting strange sounds that were suppressed to the extreme. The expression on his face was constantly changing, as if he was enduring the restlessness in his heart. It was extremely difficult for him to do so. "The ash-gray cloud evil land is still the best. I can do whatever I want." The middle-aged man sighed again. The waiter served the aged wine one after another, and then hurriedly retreated in fear. When he approached this middle-aged man who was as skinny as a ghost, the waiter always felt that his life was hanging by a thread, as if this middle-aged man would turn into a ferocious ghost at any moment. He would swallow him whole. Just as the middle-aged man's face was filled with discomfort and depression, a conversation broke out nearby. They were talking about the artifact snatching battle a few days ago. The people chatting with each other described the scene of the artifact snatching battle as if they had witnessed it with their own eyes. "You don't know yet, but the Central Capital's first young lord is no longer the Lu family's Lu Qingyao." Someone defeated Lu Qingyao? Everyone was shocked. "No, it's just that the Yang family's youngest young lord, with his Yuan Qi boundary 8th stage cultivation, was able to take 2 blows against him twice." Facing Lu Qingyao head-on, Yang Kai wasn't at a disadvantage. Lu Qingyao was an Immortal Ascension boundary 3rd stage master. There was such a huge difference in strength, but they were still able to fight on equal footing. In the future, they would be able to fight evenly. When that little lord grows to the same height as Lu Qingyao, he will surely be able to surpass him. Is it true? Of course. This news is absolutely true. I saw it with my own eyes. That little lord is truly amazing, so young yet his cultivation is so profound, and he has gathered more than a dozen first-class forces under his command. In my opinion, in this inheritance war, he may be the one to have the last laugh. It can't be? Isn't it said that the young master doesn't have many connections? Don't you know how to play the pig to eat the tiger? First, show weakness to the enemy, and then suddenly attack. Who can resist? If I remember correctly, wasn't the youngest young lord called Yang Kai? Yes. Young Lord Kai. As soon as he heard the name Yang Kai, the middle-aged man who was drinking suddenly paused and turned his head, seemingly interested in this matter. The conversation at that table wasn't hidden, so naturally everyone on the second floor heard it. Suddenly, someone sneered and retorted, "What do you know?" That day, young Lord Lu clearly didn't use his full strength. That's why Yang Kai was able to withstand 2 of his moves. At that time, I also saw it with my own eyes. Do you know what young Lord Lu said? Chuckling lightly, trying to keep the crowd in suspense, calmly continuing, young Lord Lu said that Yang Kai isn't his opponent, so I'll wait for you to grow up so we can have a good fight again. This is the bearing and demeanor of the Central Capital's first young lord. He only gave you 2 moves, yet you think Yang Kai is so great? The cultivator who spoke before suddenly became somewhat unconvinced. That's just Lu Qingyao's empty words. If they had exchanged 3 moves, it's not certain who would win. Yang Kai is currently the Central Capital's first young lord. Bullshit. The quarrel between the two quickly spread. Now, all of the great Han Dynasty's cultivator was paying attention to the inheritance war, so naturally they had their own ideas about how it would play out in the future. After a short while, The entire second floor's cultivator was divided into two camps, each one of them arguing endlessly. Only the middle-aged man by the window remained, grinning wickedly, not saying a word, but the light radiating from his eyes was becoming more and more dangerous, more and more terrifying. The crowd quarreled for a long time but still couldn't come to a conclusion. The cultivator who spoke first blushed furiously, turning his head and seeing the middle-aged man, he couldn't help shouting, "Hey, you, who do you think is the Central Capital's first young lord? You want this old master to say?" The middle-aged man looked stunned and asked in surprise. "Yes, you want to say it. Seeing how silent you are, it's obvious you have your own opinion. Let us all hear it, but at your age, why would you call yourself an old master?" Ha! Everyone couldn't help laughing, wondering if this middle-aged man liked to take advantage of his seniority. The second floor suddenly quieted down as everyone's eyes stared at the middle-aged man, asking for his opinion. The middle-aged man nodded gently, hesitating for a moment before saying, "If this old master really wants to say it, the Central Capital's first young lord must be that Yang Kai. Not only is he the Central Capital's first young lord, but he will also be the future first young lord under the heavens? Heh. Everyone was stunned. Even the group of people who supported Yang Kai felt that this middle-aged man was a bit out of his mind, secretly shaking their heads. If Yang Kai was the current first young lord of the Central Capital, it would be somewhat reasonable, but to say he was the future first young lord under the heavens was simply too much of an exaggeration. The martial Dao was limitless. So far, none of the top masters at the above immortal ascension boundary dared claim to be invincible. This madman. The cultivator who supported Lu Qingyao said contemptuously, "What nonsense is he spouting? That Yang Kai is nothing, he's actually the future first young lord." Before he could finish his words though, he suddenly froze, as if an invisible force had caught his throat, making it impossible for him to speak. Everyone turned to look at him and couldn't help paling. In the blink of an eye, this cultivator's complexion turned incomparably black, as if he had been poisoned. His eyes were bloodshot, and blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices. The next moment, a burst of energy visible to the naked eye suddenly flew out from the top of this man's head, circled around a few times in the air, and shot towards the middle-aged man sitting by the window. The middle-aged man opened his mouth wide and directly swallowed this burst of energy into his abdomen. Strangely, the middle-aged man's skinny body, after swallowing this burst of energy, suddenly expanded, and although he was still thin, he was no longer as terrifying as before. With a bang, the black-faced cultivator fell to the floor, his vitality completely gone. A chill rose from everyone's heart, making all the cultivator feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. No one knew how he died, but after seeing the scene just now, no matter who it was clear that this was definitely the work of that terrifying middle-aged man. A terrifying, cold, dark, and murderous aura suddenly erupted, enveloping the entire restaurant. The middle-aged man lowered his head slightly, and a strange laughter came from his throat. When the laughter entered everyone's ears, all the cultivators' blood boiled, and their faces instantly flushed red, as if their blood was boiling in an instant. Kik. The laughter became louder and louder, more and more rampant, and incomparably strange and sinister. "This old man is hungry, and since you've come knocking, then this old man won't hold back. If the young master comes to investigate in the future, this old man will have an excuse," the middle-aged man said, and his body didn't move. Pa, balls of light like blooming red roses exploded in the cultivator's body one after another, their internal organs spilling out, and blood splattering all over the floor. Every time someone died, a burst of energy visible to the naked eye would fly out from those dismembered corpses, and be swallowed by the middle-aged man in one gulp. The middle-aged man's thin body also began to swell, and gradually, he became somewhat handsome. The only thing that didn't change was the coldness and malice in his long and narrow eyes. In an instant, the second floor of the restaurant became a hellish existence, and more than 20 cultivators died an unnatural death. Those who survived trembled, and didn't even have the courage to resist. With a begging expression on their faces, they looked at the middle-aged man, and they were about to cry. "You're not full yet?" The middle-aged man patted his stomach, and a look of dissatisfaction appeared on his face. He glanced at the dozen or so people who were still alive, and his expression was restless. Being stared at like this, all of them immediately prostrated themselves on the ground, kowtowing vigorously and begging for mercy. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment, and for some reason, he didn't kill them all. Instead, his body flashed, and he turned into a black fog and disappeared from everyone's sight. After he left, those who were still alive looked at each other, and some of them didn't know why this cruel guy would let them go. With the personality and cruel temperament he showed, he wouldn't even frown if he killed more than a dozen people, but he didn't do so. Looking at each other, everyone was surprised to find that the group of people who were still alive seemed to be the ones who supported Yang Kai just now, and those who opposed Yang Kai were all dead. They couldn't help but feel lucky to have survived a disaster. Looking at the tragic and bloody scene around them, everyone couldn't help but turn pale, and they directly vomited all the food they had just eaten. These cultivators were also people who licked the blood off their blades and hung their heads on their belts, but none of them had seen such a horrible scene. Those who had died had all been turned into minced meat. Outside Stone City, a black fog suddenly appeared and the middle-aged man slowly appeared. Glancing towards War City 1,000 kilometers away, a grin appeared on his face as he muttered softly, "I haven't seen young master for so long, I wonder how he's doing. If this old master goes over like this, won't he be scared?" Startled, the middle-aged man secretly thought to himself, "I don't know if young master will blame me. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have stayed in the ash-gray cloud evil land for so long." Chapter 472. Thinking of the young master, the middle-aged man's expression became somewhat complicated. In fact, the relationship between him and the young master was not harmonious at all. When they first met, the middle-aged man had tried to seize the latter's body as a soul, but he had never expected to be restrained by the young master's brand and be controlled by him instead. After that, the middle-aged man spent a period of time as a slave. During that time, the middle-aged man was docile and loyal on the surface, but in reality he was constantly trying to escape from the young master's slavery and regain his freedom. But as time passed, the middle-aged man gradually discovered the huge potential hidden in the young master. Although he had not recovered much of his memory, he was still able to see. The young master was different from an ordinary cultivator. He was shrouded in a variety of mysterious auras. Even though the two of them spent day and night together, the middle-aged man was unable to see through these mysteries and instead became more and more confused, allowing him to gradually restrain his thoughts and secretly look forward to the young master's growth. Then, after finding this demon body under the coiling dragon stream, the young master was relieved to let his soul enter it. To be honest, at that time, the middle-aged man was a little worried that the young master would suspect him. If he did not allow him to enter this demon body, the middle-aged man might really hold a grudge against him and try to get rid of his control. Fortunately, the young master allowed it. This made the middle-aged man very grateful at that time. Thinking about it carefully, the young master seemed to have treated him well, so for this demon body, the middle-aged man felt the need to help him. After all, his soul still had the young master's brand, so if he provoked the young master, only death awaited him. The middle-aged man made up his mind. The middle-aged man's expression became firm and he no longer hesitated. However, going there alone seemed to be a bit inappropriate. If the young master asked, would he tell him that he had forgotten the agreement engraved on the stone wall while he was in the ash-gray cloud evil land? Frowning for a moment, the middle-aged man quickly spread out his vast spiritual energy. His original intention was to see if there was any excuse nearby that he could use. However, after spreading out his divine sense, the middle-aged man's spiritual energy suddenly fluctuated and seemed to have come from a certain place in the distance. A familiar divine soul fluctuation came to him. The middle-aged man's expression couldn't help becoming surprised as he glanced over, suddenly remembering something. He chuckled softly and his figure flashed. He was wrapped in a black light and disappeared like a bolt of lightning. 100 miles away, a group of people were fleeing in panic. The number of people wasn't large, but it wasn't small either. There were about 30 of them, but the leader was only an immortal ascension boundary 4th stage cultivator. The rest of them weren't immortal ascension boundary masters. Most of them were Yuan Qi cultivators. All around them, quite a few figures were flying at high speed, surrounding this group of people. However, they did not immediately kill them. They just followed them closely. As for the martial artists that were following them, they did not seem to be from the same group. There were several batches. These groups of people were also wary of each other. These people are really annoying. They've been following us for more than 10 days and we still can't shake them off. In the crowd, a pretty girl complained as she ran. This is troublesome, a man next to her smiled bitterly. I'm afraid we won't be able to reach War City like this. Brother, what should we do? The girl asked anxiously. Let's take one step at a time. The man obviously didn't have any good ideas and could only follow behind his sect elder. While the two were talking, another woman with a cold expression leaned forward. This woman had a slender figure and a graceful waist. Just by looking at her appearance, she was a rare beauty. However, what made people feel strange was that this woman's pair of jade hands were wrapped in a white ribbon. It was impossible to see what her hands looked like. Not only her, but in this group of people, many of them had their hands wrapped in white bands, as if they were hiding some unspeakable secret. Brother Tao, if we really can't do this, let's separate. The woman's pair of beautiful eyes flashed with a cold light. After being chased for so many days, she was truly angry. Those people's goal is our Ghost King Valley. If we separate, they won't bother your treasure instrument sect. Tao Yang heard this and shook his head. Junior Sister Lung, your thinking is too simple. Do you really think these people are only targeting your Ghost King Valley? Although that's not entirely the case, we also have a certain responsibility. Lung Shan's expression darkened. She wasn't a fool. Naturally, she knew that the main reason this group of people had chased them and threatened them from time to time, but didn't directly attack was because they didn't want to offend Treasure Instrument Sect. Ghost King Valley was just a legitimate excuse for them to come here. This time, she was afraid they had made a mistake. A few months ago, news of the Inheritance War had spread to the Ash Gray Cloud Evil Land, so the people from Ghost King Valley had naturally heard about it. Like Chen Xueshu and the others, when Ling Shan heard Yang Kai's name, she also had some doubts, wondering if this Yang family's youngest young lord was the same one she knew. Later, after many inquiries, she confirmed it. Lung Shan's status in Ghost King Valley wasn't low, so she immediately asked Ghostly to allow her to lead the sect's people to participate in the Inheritance War. Ghostly refused. After all, Ghost King Valley was a sect of the Ash Gray Cloud Evil Land. If a disciple rashly left the Ash Gray Cloud Evil Land, they would certainly not have a good end. How could he dare participate in the central capital Yang family's Inheritance War? Not only did he refuse, but he also locked Lung Shan up and ordered her not to come out until she broke through to the Immortal Ascension boundary. Later, her brother Qin Yi and Qing Ying secretly released her. The three of them gathered a group of brothers who had received Yang Kai's kindness in the Evil Cavern and secretly left Ghost King Valley to rush to the central capital. All of this was to repay Yang Kai for saving their lives again and again. That time in the Evil Cavern, if not for Yang Kai, these Ghost King Valley disciples would have died 1,000 times over. However, the mark of a Ghost King Valley disciple was too obvious. That pair of pale, bloodless ghost hands, once seen, would be immediately recognized as an evil sect disciple. If an evil sect disciple was wandering outside, then they would be killed. Therefore, the Ghost King Valley disciples wrapped their hands in white cloth. Although it looked strange, it could at least conceal their identity. In addition to Lung Shan, who had left the Ash Gray Cloud Evil Land once, the others had never gone out before, so after leaving the Ash Gray Cloud Evil Land, they were like headless flies. Finally, after thinking about it, Qin Yi decided to first go to Treasure Instrument Sect to find Tao Yang and use Treasure Instrument Sect as a cover to travel to the central capital. In his opinion, Tao Yang and the others from Treasure Instrument Sect would definitely help Yang Kai. Tao Yang had long since received Yang Kai's messenger, but had been unable to convince the elders in the sect. Relying only on the few brothers who knew Yang Kai, they wouldn't be able to offer much help. When the Ghost King Valley disciples arrived at Treasure Instrument Sect, Tao Yang was in a terrible state, but when he saw Leng Shan, Chen Yi, and the others, he was overjoyed and quickly arranged for them to quietly stay in Treasure Instrument Sect. For the next period of time, Leng Shan and the others and Tao Yang spent every day coaxing and persuading the elders of Treasure Instrument Sect. Their efforts paid off and they were finally able to convince the sect elders. Quickly setting out. Just as they stepped out of Treasure Instrument Sect, they were targeted by several groups of people. Outside of Treasure Instrument Sect, every day was bustling with activity, just like the situation in Medicine King's Valley. The number of cultivators who came to request artifact refining was innumerable, but these few groups of people were somewhat unusual. They only followed Treasure Instrument Sect but didn't come up to speak, causing many people to be very suspicious. After being tracked for a day, an Immortal Ascension Boundary Master from Treasure Instrument Sect couldn't help but ask. He soon learned that these groups of people were actually sent by the Yang family young lords to persuade them to join. The group from Medicine King's Valley had already been recruited by Yang Kai, so these artifact refining masters from Treasure Instrument Sect were naturally in high demand. Whether it was Yang Zhao, Yang Kong, Yang Shen, Yang Ying, or even Yang Wei, all of them had sent their own people. But how could Tao Yang and the others accept their offers? After refusing, this group of people didn't become anxious and instead continued to follow them while remaining vigilant, making it clear that even if they couldn't win them over, others wouldn't either. After following them for a few days, these people finally found an opportunity. A disciple from Ghost King Valley accidentally exposed his identity, immediately causing these groups of people to become restless. Senior Wu, as long as you hand over those people from Ghost King Valley, we won't embarrass your noble sect. After all, your noble sect's artifact refining techniques are unrivaled in this world. Who knows, in the future, we'll have to trouble you. Among the group of people on the left, an Immortal Ascension Boundary 6th Stage Master said with a smile. This sentence was immediately echoed by the others, all of them nodding in agreement, all of them expressing their stance, implying that as long as Treasure Instrument Sect handed over the Ghost King Valley disciples, they wouldn't spread the news of their collusion with evil sect. Wu Yen, who was leading the charge, simply snorted and didn't respond. How could he not see the intentions of this group of people? It was precisely because he saw through their intentions that he was extremely disdainful. Tao Yang, get over here. Wu Yen had nowhere to vent his anger, so he shouted towards the back of the group. Tao Yang's neck shrank as he immediately rushed forward and respectfully asked, "Martial uncle, what instructions do you have for me?" Wu Yen sneered meaningfully, "You little brat, you've grown up and your courage has grown. Daring to accept those people from Ghost King Valley, what do you want your martial uncle to say about you?" Wu Yen had only learned of their true identities a few days ago after that Ghost King Valley disciple exposed himself. If he had known earlier, how could the elders of Treasure Instrument Sect have allowed Leng Shan and the others to live in the sect? Tao Yang didn't seem to care and just grinned meaningfully. "Martial uncle, when junior sister Zhao Rong and I went to the evil cavern last time, it was all thanks to them that we were able to take care of us. If not for them, I'm afraid we would have already died." Wu Yen glared at him. "Wasn't the one who took care of you Yang Kai? How did you suddenly become a member of Ghost King Valley? Which one of your words is true?" I took care of them, Tao Yang said with an indifferent expression. "Besides, martial uncle, our Treasure Instrument Sect is the same as Medicine King's Valley. We open our doors to do business. We have friends everywhere. What evil sect or orthodox sect? Why would we care? In any case, since you've caused this trouble, you better solve it for this old master, otherwise, when we go back this time, I'll expel you from the sect." "Martial uncle, don't be like that, I'm still trying to think of a way." Tao Yang suddenly looked depressed. "You'd better think of a way." Chapter 473. Although he said so, in fact, Tao Yang didn't have much confidence. This group of Ghost King Valley disciples were all young, and none of them had reached the Immortal Ascension boundary. On the other hand, although Treasure Instrument Sect had several Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters and carried a wide array of artifacts, if they really fought, they definitely wouldn't be the opponents of this group. If he could secretly send someone out to inform Yang Kai, Tao Yang believed that as long as Yang Kai learned about the situation here, he would definitely bring a large number of people to greet them. As long as he was in charge, entering War City would be easy. However, right now, there was no chance for him to send out a message. "Brother Tao, I'm sorry you were scolded by Senior Wu," Leng Shan said guiltily. She, Chen Yi, and the others really had no other choice but to seek out Tao Yang. After all, when they first left the evil cavern, Tao Yang and the others had stayed in Ghost King Valley for some time, so they were quite familiar with each other. "It doesn't matter," Martial Uncle was just saying that. "He's not willing to expel me from the sect." Tao Yang smiled and waved his hand. Treasure Instrument sect had very few members, only 100 in total. Each generation of disciples had undergone an extremely strict selection process, even stricter than Medicine King's valleys. However, every disciple of Treasure Instrument sect had unparalleled talent and achievements in the artifact refining Dao, and among this generation, Tao Yang was one of the top masters. Treasure Instrument sect's future depended on him, so how could Wu Yan be willing to expel him from the sect? Saying so, Tao Yang's expression became gloomy. 5 groups of people escorting the sect leader appeared to be quite impressive, but in reality, they were quite frustrating. If they fought, they couldn't beat them, and if they spoke, they certainly wouldn't listen to them. Moreover, as time went by, as they got closer and closer to War City, these 5 groups of people gradually lost their patience, and when they exchanged looks, it was as if a storm was brewing. After all, Treasure Instrument sect's status was not as stable as Medicine King's valleys, so no one dared to offend them. However, although Treasure Instrument sect had a good reputation, some people still didn't put it in their eyes. Over the years, it was unknown how many great forces had secretly tried to annex Treasure Instrument sect. Plots and machinations, open spears and hidden arrows, one after another. Fortunately, Treasure Instrument sect had accumulated a lot of connections, so every time a disaster occurred, they were able to resolve it. However, this situation couldn't continue for a long time. They needed the protection of a transcendent force's name. It was for this reason the elders of Treasure Instrument sect had agreed to Tao Yang's request to participate in the inheritance war. As long as they negotiated terms with Yang Kai, helping him wasn't impossible. The group flew forward for another half an hour. War City City's sect. At this distance, the 5 groups sent out by the Yang family young lords were already showing signs of impatience, exchanging glances with each other. Yang was sect, Yang sect. S's sect. The sects. There's sects good sects is elders. Sect. T's sect. S sect, I. Hearing this, Wu Yan's face turned cold and he shouted angrily, "What do you want to do?" The man chuckled and said, "Good and evil cannot coexist. We only want to punish evil and eliminate evil. Mr. Wu, it's best to let your sect's disciples know their place. Otherwise, it's hard to say what will happen if you accidentally injure them." Wu Yan sneered, "I'm afraid that the youngsters behind me are all from the evil sects, right? Regardless of whether they attack or not, you will still capture them." "How could this be?" The man slowly shook his head. "At the very least, I know who your esteemed sect's eldest disciple is, Tao Yang. As for whether or not the others are disciples of the evil sects, we'll know once we capture them and interrogate them." At this point, no matter who it was, everyone understood that these people were using the name of suppressing Ghost King Valley to deal with Treasure Instrument sect. They wouldn't kill anyone, they would only capture Treasure Instrument sect's young lords and make them serve the Yang family's young lords. Not to mention, if a fight really broke out, would Tao Yang and the others not make a move? Once he made a move, it would give the other party a legitimate excuse to arrest him. The twists and turns of this plan were already laid out in the open. Wu Yan's expression sank as he whispered, "It looks like Treasure Instrument sect won't be able to avoid this disaster this time. When the fight breaks out, run if you can, don't resist, they won't kill you." Tao Yang, quickly go to War City and find Yang Kai and ask him to deal with this matter. Disciple will remember. Tao Yang quickly responded. Tell him that if my treasure instrument sect suffers a single casualty, don't expect this old master to refine artifacts for him in the future. Wu Yan reiterated again. It looks like Mr. Wu has already considered this? The man urged again, lightly snorting. Since that's the case, then we'll have to offend you. As soon as these words were spoken, the 5 groups of people set out almost at the same time, all of them aiming at the treasure instrument sect disciples in the crowd. Treasure instrument sect had dispatched more than 20 people this time, so after dividing them up, it wasn't a small number. At the very least, when they returned to War City, they would be able to answer to the Yang family young lords. The people from Treasure Instrument Sect and Ghost King Valley also stopped in their tracks, but just as they were about to scatter according to Wu Yan's instructions, a figure suddenly appeared above their heads. This person's appearance was quite strange. No one could see how he had appeared, as if he had been hiding himself and was floating above everyone's heads. When this figure appeared, an extremely terrifying divine sense power suddenly enveloped the entire area. The 5 groups of people who had been attacking suddenly stopped, each of them showing a frightened expression as they hurriedly pushed their yuan qi to resist this terrifying pressure, all pairs of eyes trembling violently as they stared at this person in disbelief. On the other hand, the people from Treasure Instrument Sect and Ghost King Valley wore puzzled expressions. Especially Lung Shan. When this person appeared, she seemed to have sensed some fluctuations in her mind, but when she tried to investigate more carefully, those fluctuations disappeared. Staring straight at the middle-aged man floating in the air, Lung Shan's brow furrowed slightly. The other party also glanced over at her casually, actually showing a friendly smile before immediately turning his eyes away. His eyes becoming cold, a cruel, bloodthirsty, and gloomy aura spread out as the middle-aged man grinned wickedly, bullying the weak with numbers. Interesting. His attitude was thought-provoking, neither friendly nor hostile, as if he was just a passing master who had come to watch the fun. No one dared to answer. Under the cover of this terrifying and gloomy spiritual energy, even the slightest movement or change in demeanor could lead to bad consequences. The situation suddenly came to a stalemate. The faces of the 5 groups of people were extremely ugly, as if they were walking on thin ice, not daring to move. Pairs of eyes stared at the middle-aged man with fear, and beads of sweat gradually flowed down their foreheads. Are you all mutes? The middle-aged man's expression became cold as he coldly shouted. It was like a clap of thunder, resounding in everyone's ears, shaking everyone's eardrums to the point of buzzing. They couldn't help but take a few steps back, and when they looked forward again, their expressions became more and more frightened. If they didn't speak to break this deadlock, they were afraid this situation would become impossible to end. After realizing this, the most powerful experts in the 5 groups of people glanced at each other. The person on the left braced himself, and with a respectful expression, he cupped his hands and asked, "Dare I ask for your esteemed name?" "We are from Thunder Province's Dingguang sect." Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the middle-aged man, his brow wrinkling as he said with some displeasure, "Dingguang sect? Never heard of it." Dingguang sect was also a first-class force, but now it was being evaluated as a third-rate force, but the middle-aged man didn't dare show the slightest anger and simply smiled. "We are temporarily serving the central capital's Yang family's second young master." In his opinion, this middle-aged man's strength was unfathomable and his magic chi reached the heavens, so he was definitely a character with eyes at the top of his head. Since Dingguang sect didn't enter his eyes, the central capital's Yang family couldn't be the same, right? Bringing up the second young master's name might make this middle-aged man retreat. Second young master? Sure enough, when the middle-aged man heard these 3 words, he couldn't help showing a look of interest. What is the Yang family's second young master called? Yang Zhao. The middle-aged man replied with a smile, his expression relaxing, thinking that his words just now had some effect. What about you? The middle-aged man turned to look at the other groups of people. None of them dared to neglect and scrambled to report the sect they belonged to and the name of the young master they served. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man, who had a smile on his face, after hearing these people report their names, his expression gradually became unpleasant, like the eve of a storm. Shit! Seeing this, everyone couldn't help feeling a chill in their hearts, their palms and feet becoming wet with sweat. None of you seem to be working for Yang Kai? The middle-aged man's mouth curled into a sneer, his expression as cold as a blade. Senior, we're going to help Yang Kai. Tao Yang's eyes narrowed slightly as he hurriedly cupped his fists and said he had also noticed this subtle message. The middle-aged man looked down and couldn't help smiling. Good, 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 you have good eyesight, little brat. Good, good, if you follow Yang Kai well, you'll have a bright future ahead of you. Many thanks for Senior's praise. Tao Yang smiled happily. Wu Yan's face was cold as he glared at him fiercely. Tao Yang's performance just now was clearly that of a coward who only knew how to curry favor with others. This was simply a loss of face for Treasure Instrument sect. Good, since you're going to seek refuge with Yang Kai, this old master can't just sit back and watch. The middle-aged man nodded gently and waved his hand. Your safety, this old master will be responsible for it. Hearing this, whether it was Ghost King Valley or Treasure Instrument sect, all of them showed joy. None of them had expected that such a powerful master would appear at this critical juncture to protect them, all of them feeling extremely grateful. On the contrary, the 5 groups of people all wore gloomy expressions and didn't dare to act rashly. After experiencing the power of this man's spiritual energy, they naturally knew that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. The man who spoke before cupped his fists and squeezed out a smile. Since your excellency has come forward, we won't disturb you any longer. Farewell. Saying so, he waved his hand and retreated vigilantly. Chapter 474. The 5 groups had only taken a few steps back when a burst of strange laughter rang out, causing everyone's scalp to go numb, making them feel extremely uncomfortable. Did this old master allow you to leave? The middle-aged man's eyes flashed with a dangerous cold light, his voice low, a gloomy aura spreading from his body, causing everyone present to shiver. Everyone's expression changed, suddenly becoming extremely ugly, none of them daring to act rashly. What other advice does this sir have? The man who had just spoken frowned and asked, secretly circulating his strength. Originally, this old master was in a good mood today and was too lazy to kill. The middle-aged man smiled calmly, his expression relaxed. But you people have eyes but fail to see, short-sighted rats, taking refuge with someone you shouldn't have, so this old master can't just ignore it. Hearing the meaning of his words, the faces of the 5 groups became even uglier, the Immortal Ascension Boundary Master coldly snorting, our actions do not need to be judged by your excellency. Although your excellency is strong, there are so many of us here, do you really want to kill us all? As they spoke, the 5 groups gradually gathered together, all of them staring towards the middle-aged man with dignified expressions, clearly indicating that they would live or die together. In the face of such a master, they had no choice but to act, hoping that the other party would quit while they were ahead and retreat. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man not only didn't feel the situation was troublesome, his expression instead becoming more and more excited, nodding repeatedly, Good, good, with so many people, I can finally kill them all. As he spoke, his expression became fierce as he spread out his hands. Slowly lifting them, he grinned, Blood sea seals the heavens. Behind him, a crimson light suddenly flashed, and the crimson light shot out like an arrow towards the place where the 5 groups of people were gathered. No one was able to react, caught off guard and enveloped by this blood-red light. As far as the eye could see, it was a world of scarlet. Not only had the sky become a dazzling red, the ground under his feet seemed to be made of fresh blood as well. Blood bubbles the size of wash basins kept popping out and bursting. The explosion caused everyone's body to be covered in blood, making them look terrifying. The sound of rustling filled the air. It was like an Azura purgatory. What is this? The 5 groups of people immediately panicked. They had never seen such a strange and sinister martial skill before. With one move, even the surrounding environment changed. In the midst of the chaos, They all activated their yuan qi, activated their body movement skills, and equipped themselves with secret treasures in an attempt to escape the shackles of this blood-red world. Who would have thought that the blood on the ground seemed to have a huge suction force that firmly sucked them to the ground, making them unable to move at all. The ground he was standing on. It was as if it had turned into a swamp. The more they moved, the faster they sank. Ji. The middle-aged man laughed strangely again, his face full of joy as he enjoyed the ugly and helpless expressions of the people struggling in the sea of blood. His long and narrow eyes even bloomed with a strange light. He seemed to be extremely excited. The people from Ghost King Valley and Treasure Instrument sect were also shocked, all of them staring towards the blood sea, their eyes trembling violently. Everyone knew that this middle-aged man who had suddenly appeared was very powerful, but no one knew that he was this powerful. With just one move, 5 groups of people had fallen into a desperate situation. Looking at his appearance, it seemed that he hadn't used his full strength at all and had only casually attacked. Ghost King Valley itself was an evil sect, and the martial skills and secret arts they cultivated were also gloomy and sinister. But when Leng Shan and the others compared their sect's martial skills to the scene in front of them, it was like a little wizard meeting a great wizard. Looking at the blood-red sea, the Ghost King Valley disciples all felt a chill run down their spines and their souls tremble. The artifact refiners from Treasure Instruments sect all paled. Only Wu Yen suppressed the throbbing in his heart and glanced over at the middle-aged man. He suddenly discovered that this middle-aged man didn't seem to be a good person either. After 10 breaths of time, the cultivator trapped in the blood sea began to change. These people, no matter how strong they were, no matter how high their cultivation was, all of them became ferocious, their eyes bloodshot and filled with panic. The look of panic disappeared from their faces, replaced by infinite madness and murderous intent. It was as if the cruelty and evilness hidden in the sea of blood had affected their hearts. Someone roared, using their martial skills and artifacts to cover their companions, directly turning them into headless corpses. The 5 groups of people seemed to have been possessed by the devil. They didn't recognize anyone, and they kept shouting and fighting desperately with the people around them. Corpses fell one after another, the blood that flowed out making the blood sea even redder. The smell of blood filled the air. The middle-aged man seemed to be enjoying a great show, his brow overflowing with joy and happiness. Broken limbs flew everywhere, mountains of corpses were piled up, and rivers of blood flowed. The several female disciples from Treasure Instrument sect and Ghost King Valley couldn't help pulling out their handkerchiefs and rushing to the side to retch, vomiting all the bitter water in their mouths. They had never seen such a bloody and terrifying scene, it had long exceeded their psychological threshold. The middle-aged man turned his head and glanced over at them, chuckled, and no longer paid them any attention. After about half a cup of tea's worth of time, the 5 groups of people who had been shrouded in the blood sea had almost all died, leaving only the Immortal Ascension Boundary Master who had just spoken. In the end, he was the strongest of them all. Although he was only an Immortal Ascension Boundary 6th stage cultivator, compared to the others, whether it was his personal cultivation or martial skills, he was far superior. But even if he had survived at this moment, he was no longer the same person he had been before. This man's eyes were extremely red, like a beast that had been trapped in a cage for thousands of years without freedom, his nostrils exuding a fiery aura, his face filled with infinite murderous intent, staring left and right as he stood above the blood sea. His consciousness had been annihilated, and now he was nothing more than a walking corpse obeying his killing instincts. Good. Since you've survived, this old master will spare your life. The middle-aged man laughed, waving his hands and sending out a series of mysterious seals towards the Immortal Ascension Boundary Master's body. As these seals were sent out, the Immortal Ascension Boundary Master's body seemed to transform into a vortex, madly swallowing the blood around him. This bizarre scene caused the people from Ghost King Valley and Treasure Instrument sect to be shocked again. With the infusion of blood, the Immortal Ascension Boundary Master's body and face gradually began to change. His body began to swell up and his face became distorted. Even on his forehead, there was a large bump. After a long time, all the blood had been poured into his body, and at this moment, it was basically impossible to see his original appearance. This immortal ascension boundary master's body was blood red, like a hot iron, his face blurred, only his eyes exuding a terrifying light. Wu Yan was shocked by this middle-aged man's bizarre methods, but after a brief examination, he discovered that this immortal ascension boundary 6th-stage cultivator was now exuding a shocking amount of yuan qi, and his aura had also become violent, manic, and cruel. Roar. The immortal ascension boundary master roared towards the sky, a beastly roar coming from his mouth, causing the clouds in the sky to change color as a huge mass of clouds gathered above his head and a red light shot out from the large bump on his forehead, piercing through the heavens. Not bad, this old master didn't raise you with his blood in vain. The middle-aged man snorted, and with a wave of his hand, the immortal ascension boundary master actually transformed into a blood-red light and flew into his palm, disappearing from sight. Everyone was dumbfounded. The methods this middle-aged man had used one after another were completely unheard of, as if they didn't belong to this world. After witnessing this man's cruelty and ruthlessness, the people from Ghost King Valley and Treasure Instrument sect couldn't help feeling like they had just escaped from a wolf's den only to fall into a tiger's den. This man had killed those 5 groups of people as easily as crushing a group of ants, so why would he even need to blink an eye to kill them? Unexpectedly, after the middle-aged man withdrew his blood-red light, his previous ferocious expression disappeared and he landed on the ground, smiling towards the crowd and saying, "Good, clean up the trash, let's go." No one dared to move, all of them staring at this middle-aged man with fear and horror. The middle-aged man also noticed that the atmosphere wasn't right and smiled. "Are you afraid I'll kill you?" Wu Yan couldn't help lightly coughing, an awkward expression appearing on his face as he hurriedly said, "We wouldn't dare. Your Excellency has saved our lives. We wouldn't dare speculate." "Don't worry, since you're going to help Yang Kai, I won't do anything to you. I'm also going to find Yang Kai, heh." The middle-aged man's expression was gentle, causing many people to relax. Suddenly changing the topic, the middle-aged man let out a strange laugh. "But if you go to help the other Yang family young lords, don't blame this old master for not showing mercy." The relaxed atmosphere once again became tense. Wu Yan quickly said, No, we're going to seek refuge with young Lord Kai." In his heart, however, he couldn't help but wonder what kind of people this Yang family's youngest young lord had met. Could this man in front of him be the legendary demon lord? Among the crowd, Lung Shan hesitated for a long time before bravely stepping forward, staring at the middle-aged man and whispering, "Many thanks for Senior's help just now. May I ask Senior's name?" Wu Yan's ears twitched and he quickly held his breath to listen. "This old master is called D.N. This old master's surname is D. So, it's Senior D." Lung Shan didn't dare to ask further, simply asking suspiciously, "Senior D, have we met somewhere before?" Chen Yi, Ching Ying, and the others couldn't help feeling shocked, quickly glancing towards Lung Shan. This middle-aged man didn't look like a good person at first glance. His methods were extremely cruel, thousands of times crueler than those of Ghost King Valley. What was wrong with his junior sister, actually wanting to get close to him? It was too late to avoid him. However, the middle-aged man who claimed to be surnamed D actually smiled and nodded, "We've met before." Lung Shan became even more confused, her brow furrowing as a puzzled look appeared on her pretty face. "Then why don't I have any impression of you at all, only faintly feeling that Senior is familiar?" Chapter 475. Lung Shan was also a rising star of Ghost King Valley, and although her memory wasn't perfect, she was still able to remember where she had seen and what kind of people. In particular, this strange Senior D was so powerful. If she had really met him before, how could Lung Shan forget? However, Lung Shan couldn't remember. Moreover, this kind of familiarity wasn't just a sense of familiarity, it was just a feeling. If she really thought about it, the feeling this Senior D gave her was somewhat similar to that of ZMO from Tianlang Dynasty. She and ZMO felt an inexplicable sense of closeness because Yang Kai had left his brand on her soul, So why did this Senior D give her the same feeling? Since he was so powerful, how could Yang Kai have left his brand on her soul? Lung Shan secretly shook her head, thinking that her guess was a bit ridiculous. The Senior D actually grinned meaningfully and replied, "This old master has seen you before, but you haven't seen this old master before." Lung Shan was even more confused and didn't ask any more questions. "Good, let's walk and talk. This place is only 800 kilometers away from War City. We should be able to reach it before dark." The Senior D waved his hand and led the way. The Ghost King Valley and Treasure Instrument sect disciples all glanced at each other hesitantly. Wu Yen was even more hesitating for a moment before gritting his teeth and saying, "Let's follow." This man was too powerful, and regardless of what reason he had for helping them, if he really wanted to kill them, with the means he had just displayed, he could have killed everyone here in an instant. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, it couldn't be avoided. At this time, it was best to follow this man's wishes. The truth of the matter would naturally become clear once they reached War City. The group of more than 30 people, all of them trembling in fear as they followed. After walking for some distance, the middle-aged man suddenly turned around. Waving to Lung Shan, he called out, "Little girl, come here." Lung Shan nodded and stepped forward, but Chen Yi hurriedly shouted, "Junior sister, be careful." Lung Shan didn't show any signs of worry and calmly walked forward, walking side by side with the middle-aged man, respectfully asking, "What is Senior's order?" The middle-aged man turned his head and glanced at her. He urged, "Relax." Lung Shan still didn't know what he was going to do. Suddenly, he saw the middle-aged man open his hand and grab him. He subconsciously wanted to resist, but before Yuan Qi could gather, the middle-aged man withdrew his hand. A series of ghostly wails and wolf howls rang out, causing Lung Shan's expression to change when she looked over. She discovered the Ghost King seal in her body. Surprisingly, the middle-aged man managed to pull it out. The illusory soul struggled and wriggled in the middle-aged man's hand, howling incessantly. But he couldn't break free. Ghost King Valley had a martial skill that everyone could practice, and that was the Ghost King seal. They were spirits that were born in the land of ghosts. They were subdued and refined by a Ghost King Valley disciple using a special method and were constantly fed with their own essence, qi, and soul, growing alongside their master. When facing the enemy, they would be able to launch a surprise attack. It could be said that when a Ghost King Valley disciple's cultivation reached a profound level, when fighting, it was always 2 against 1. However, Lung Shan's group of young disciples was different. For the time being, they hadn't cultivated the Ghost King seal to that level and couldn't display its full power. No one had ever been able to forcibly pull the Ghost King seal out of a Ghost King Valley disciple's body, but this master surnamed D had done so. Lung Shan didn't even notice. Just as she was about to ask, the middle-aged man opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of black mist which hit the Ghost King seal. The howling and struggling Ghost King seal seemed to have received a great deal of nourishment and instantly calmed down. Not only did it no longer have any of its previous agitation, but it also seemed to be enjoying itself, its twisted facial features showing a look of extreme satisfaction and joy. Lung Shan couldn't help being startled and quickly swallowed the words she was about to say. "Here you go." The middle-aged man smiled and released the Ghost King seal back into Lung Shan's body. "Junior sister." Chen Yi imprinted the scene just now into his eyes and was suddenly filled with righteous indignation, rushing over to protect Lung Shan and glaring at the middle-aged man. "Your courage isn't small." The middle-aged man sneered. Lung Shan quickly said, "I'm fine, brother, you've misunderstood, this senior just helped me a great deal." As she spoke, her expression became one of joy and excitement. "What do you mean?" Chen Yi asked curiously. "My Ghost King seal fell into a deep sleep," Lung Shan explained. "What?" Chen Yi's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. The Ghost King seal's spirit body grew as its owner grew, just like a snake shedding its skin. Every time it fell into a deep sleep, its strength would greatly increase when it awoke. Strictly speaking, the Ghost King seal in Lung Shan's body had already evolved 3 times. The next time it would evolve was when she broke through to the immortal ascension boundary. At that time, the Ghost King Seal's strength would not be inferior to an ordinary immortal ascension boundary master. But now, this evolution, which should have taken at least 1 or 2 years, had been abruptly brought forward. Lung Shan even felt that after this evolution, the Ghost King Seal's spirit body would undergo earth-shattering changes. This was no ordinary hibernation evolution. And all of this was because of the black mist the master surnamed D had spat out. Many thanks, Senior. Lung Shan was overjoyed and quickly expressed her gratitude. No need, just consider it your reward for helping Yang Kai. Treat your spirit body well. When it wakes up, it will develop sentience and become your most loyal partner, Master D said earnestly. Develop sentience. The 7 or 8 Ghost King Valley disciples all opened their mouths in disbelief. The Ghost King Seal's spirit body developing sentience wasn't just empty talk. In the records of Ghost King Valley, such a thing had indeed happened, but it was a senior who had cultivated to the above immortal ascension boundary several hundred years ago. The current Valley Master of Ghost King Valley, Gui Li's spirit body, had not yet developed sentience. Only now did everyone realize how precious this gift was. Lung Shan's face flushed with excitement as she bit her thin lip, not knowing what to say. After a long silence, she asked softly, Senior D, what is your relationship with Yang Kai? He's my young master. The middle-aged man coughed lightly, almost spilling the beans. So, you're from the Yang family? Lung Shan's beautiful eyes lit up. Well, that's hard to say. The middle-aged man replied ambiguously. Senior. Chen Yi walked up, nodding his head and scratching his cheeks as he said, You see, like junior sister, we all went to help Yang Kai. The middle-aged man glanced over at him and snorted. Do you think helping your spirit body evolve is as simple as blowing a breath of air? That will cost this old master a great deal of cultivation. Chen Yi's face went black as he felt extremely embarrassed, but he was also reluctant to give up. If he cultivated on his own, even if he died, it would be impossible for his spirit body to evolve sentience and become a legendary existence. With such a great opportunity in front of him, if he didn't grasp it, he might regret it for the rest of his life. But since this old man had said so, Chen Yi really didn't know what to say. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man suddenly changed the subject and said, But today this old master is in a good mood, so I'll help you little brats. Seeing this turn of events, Chen Yi was so excited that he couldn't help expressing his gratitude, constantly beckoning to those behind him. Come here, everyone come here. The remaining few Ghost King Valley disciples all rushed up with smiles on their faces, constantly calling out, Senior. The middle-aged man didn't hesitate, pulling the Ghost King seals out of their bodies one by one, blowing on them and putting them back. After a short time, the process was complete. The 7 or 8 Ghost King Valley disciples glanced at each other and saw the excitement and expectation in each other's eyes. Just now, when they heard this middle-aged man speak, they didn't feel anything special. But now that the Ghost King Seal's spirit body had returned, everyone was aware that this time's evolution was bound to lead to a qualitative leap forward, so they were all looking forward to the future. This time, they had really made a big profit. They hadn't even arrived in War City and hadn't even seen Yang Kai's face, but halfway through, they had encountered a master who had a relationship with Yang Kai and had received such a big gift. If they really arrived in War City, they would be able to interact with this senior all the time and receive guidance from him. The opportunities of the Ghost King Valley disciples made the people from Treasure Instrument sect extremely envious. Tao Yang eagerly rushed up, grinning mischievously. Senior, we are also going to help Kai Yang. Did you? What do you want? The middle-aged man didn't get angry and just looked at him with a smile. Tao Yang's expression became serious as he asked, Does Senior have a way to improve the purity of my Yuan Qi? It would be best if I could improve it by 1 or 2 levels. An artifact refiner's artifact refining and an alchemist's alchemy were both based on the same principle. Both had high requirements for the purity and condensation of one's Yuan Qi. Tao Yang wasn't a Ghost King Valley disciple, but rather an artifact refiner, so naturally he could only ask for an improvement in this aspect. Hearing his request, the middle-aged man sneered, "This old master can't help you with this kind of thing. Everything depends on your own efforts." "Is that so?" Tao Yang couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. "I just heard those people call you from Treasure Instrument Sect, right? Then this old master can give you a few pointers on the artifact refining path? Heh, I just don't know if you'll be enlightened or not." Wu Yan couldn't help but sneer disdainfully. Although this middle-aged man was powerful and had a strange personality, when it came to artifact refining, no one in this world could compare to Treasure Instrument Sect, even an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master. Of course, Wu Yan didn't take him seriously and thought he was just showing off. "Senior also understands artifact refining?" Tao Yang's eyes lit up. The old man surnamed D nodded gently. "I understand a little, but I'm not proficient in it. However, it's still enough to give you pointers." This time, even Tao Yang's expression became strange, not knowing what to say next. Someone actually dared to show off their artifact refining skills in front of Treasure Instrument Sect. This was the biggest joke in the world. The other party's methods were cruel and ruthless, so if he were to lose face, he would likely become enraged and start a massacre. With no other choice, Tao Yang could only grit his teeth and humbly ask for advice in order to satisfy this old man's request. Chapter 476. Tao Yang didn't have much hope and was only afraid of angering this master, so he pretended to be humble and asked for advice. However, after talking with this master for a while, Tao Yang couldn't help his expression becoming dignified. He found that this middle-aged man really wasn't a specialist in artifact refining, and it was very likely that he rarely refined artifacts himself. However, some of the techniques and artifact refining he had mastered far exceeded Tao Yang's own understanding and experience. Many of these things were completely unheard of, far beyond the current level of artifact refining. This time, not only was Tao Yang shocked, even Wu Yan, who had been somewhat disdainful before, finally put on a serious expression and listened attentively. After half an hour, Wu Yan finally couldn't hold back and joined in, putting forward his own views on the problems of artifact refining. The master surnamed D's expression remained unchanged as he calmly explained. Inside War City, Yang Kai's mansion, inside the little senior sister's room, Yang Kai took a deep breath and the bone shield in his hand finally turned into a stream of light and disappeared into his body. Refining a mysterious grade artifact took Yang Kai a full 5 days, and this was only possible under the continuous supply of true Yang Yuan Qi. If it were any other cultivator of the same level, it would have taken them at least 10 days to half a month to refine a mysterious grade artifact. As the bone shield entered his body, Yang Kai instantly understood its structure and functions, frowning for a moment before smiling with satisfaction. Worthy of a mysterious grade artifact, the role it could play was not small. If used well, it could be a deadly weapon. The reason why Yang Kai wanted to refine this bone shield first, rather than the mirror or the small sword. Yang Kai naturally had his own considerations. The grade of the mirror was higher than the bone shield, so refining it would definitely take much longer. On the other hand, the small sword was a soul-type artifact. Yang Kai felt that although his divine sense was powerful, he didn't have a knowledge sea, so refining it would definitely be difficult. The bone shield naturally became his first choice. After the bone shield entered his body, he began to understand the mysterious principles and spirit arrays engraved on it. This also allowed Yang Kai to comprehend something, and unconsciously, his Yuan Qi 8th stage cultivation surged forward. Yang Kai estimated, if he could refine the mirror into his body, he would definitely be able to advance to Yuan Qi stage 9. After increasing his strength, he wanted to break through the current bottleneck. It was not as simple as the accumulation of power. What was more important was the improvement of one's temperament and understanding of martial arts. Once the latter too met the requirements, the accumulation of power would become very easy. While he was investigating the mysteries of the bone shield, Yang Kai suddenly felt a fluctuation in his mind. He couldn't help but be startled. He quickly raised his head and looked out of the door. His face was overflowing with joy. "Old bastard, you finally showed up." Yang Kai grinned, slowly got up, opened the door and walked out. "Little Lord." Ying Jiao appeared like a ghost. Yang Kai glanced at him indifferently. Using his divine sense to scan Yang Kai's body, he found that Yang Kai had already recovered, so he couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. He didn't say anything else and just said, "Cultivate on your own. I don't need you for now." Ying Jiao's figure gradually faded into the air. In fact, he was also a little surprised. He hadn't expected Yang Kai to not be surprised by his current situation. It was as if he had already expected that Meng Wuya would be able to lift the qi-binding seal. The door to the next room suddenly opened and Meng Wuya walked out with a dignified expression, staring off into the distance. "There's demon qi." When Treasurer Meng spoke, he glanced at Yang Kai, intentionally or unintentionally, "And I feel a little familiar." "You've seen it before." Yang Kai grinned. Meng Wuya's brow furrowed. Narrowing his eyes, he asked, "Is it that demon lord?" Yang Kai gently nodded. Originally, under the coiling dragon stream, Meng Wuya had pulled the old demon out of Yang Kai's body. At that time, the two of them had been quarreling. Although Meng Wuya hadn't done anything to the old demon and had an overwhelming advantage, Yang Kai was still keenly aware that Meng Wuya was somewhat afraid of the old demon. "Since it's him, this old master won't meddle. When he comes, tell him to come see me," Meng Wuya said lightly. Yang Kai was stunned but still nodded gently. "Little Yang Kai, don't blame this old master for speaking out of turn, but you'd better be careful of that demon lord. He's not as simple as you think." "I know." "In addition, tell him to restrain himself. There are 8 masters monitoring War City. His arrival must have alerted those 8 masters." Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a bit of a headache. The 8 above Immortal Ascension boundary masters of the central capital's 8 great families were monitoring War City, so the old demon's aura couldn't be hidden from them. Although he had his own protection, if he did something too outrageous, those 8 masters would certainly not sit idly by. After Meng Wuya said a few words, he turned around and walked back into the house. Yang Kai wore a helpless expression as he stepped forward to greet this visitor. He really wanted to know what the old demon had been up to these past few months. Moreover, from what he could sense, not only was the old demon present, but also Lung Shan's soul fluctuations. Since Lung Shan had come, the people from Ghost King Valley must have also come, something Yang Kai hadn't expected. On the way, Yang Kai met a cultivator who he didn't know which force he belonged to, so he ordered, "Go and call Chiu Yimeng." The man nodded and hurried off to find Chiu Yimeng. When he reached the gate, the Chiu family's first young lady appeared, a trace of suspicion on her face as she asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm here to pick someone up," Yang Kai replied. "Pick someone up?" Chiu Yimeng's brow furrowed, but she immediately smiled happily. "Are there more people coming to join us?" "More or less." Yang Kai nodded indifferently. Chiu Yimeng looked at him with a smile. Although she didn't know how he knew, since he said so, it couldn't be wrong. Pursing her lips, she said, "It's a good thing that more people are coming. Our strength is getting stronger and stronger. The people who came this time are a bit different. You have to arrange things carefully, don't let them have any conflicts with the other forces in the house, and pay more attention to them in the future." "What do you mean?" Chiu Yimeng didn't understand. In the past, no matter what kind of people came, Yang Kai had never said anything like this. Whether it was a super force, a first-class family, or a second-class sect, Yang Kai's attitude was always the same, neither looking down on anyone nor raising anyone. It was because of this equal attitude that everyone in the house felt at ease. But now, he actually wanted her to pay special attention to this new group of people. Chiu Yimeng couldn't help wondering, secretly wondering what kind of relationship this new group of people had with Yang Kai. Was it really worth it? "They're from the ash-gray cloud evil land, do you understand?" Yang Kai glanced at Chiu Yimeng. In the Chiu family's first young lady's mind, the figures of 2 women couldn't help appearing. One was a mature beauty, the other was a young girl with a milky white liquid flowing from her mouth. She couldn't help asking, "Did the queen bring people here?" "No, they're from Ghost King Valley." Yang Kai shook his head. Chiu Yimeng was stunned for a moment before nodding lightly, "I understand." If they were from the ash-gray cloud evil land, then they were evil sect disciples. Perhaps they had some kind of grievance with the sect forces in the house before, and if it wasn't handled properly, it would only lead to trouble. But when did this smelly man have a relationship with Ghost King Valley? Qiu Yimeng was once again moved by Yang Kai's wide circle of friends. A short time later, a large group of people appeared in front of the house, a total of more than 30 people. Seeing this, Qiu Yimeng couldn't help smiling. Her face was full of smiles. Yang Kai crossed his hands behind his back and stood there quietly, his eyes sweeping over a middle-aged man who was leading this group and couldn't help smiling. Glancing behind him, Yang Kai saw the several Ghost King Valley disciples he had encountered in the evil cavern. All of them were present. However, what made Yang Kai feel both surprised and excited was that the people from Treasure Instrument sect had also come. Not long after the Inheritance War began, Yang Kai had sent a messenger from the Bamboo Knot Gang to deliver a message to his little senior sister, who had immediately rushed over after receiving it. Treasure Instrument sect had not responded, and as for the other forces in the house, they had all gathered here. All of them had gathered by themselves, not Kai Yang. But now that Tao Yang and the others had finally appeared, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a big stone fall from his heart. The only thing that made him feel strange was that these three groups of people had come together. What made Yang Kai even more puzzled was that whether it was the people from Ghost King Valley or Treasure Instrument sect, all of them were extremely respectful towards the old demon who was leading this group. What is this old demon doing? Yang Kai frowned. After not seeing each other for so long, the old demon also seemed a little excited, quickly leading the group forward. In front of so many people, the old demon didn't want to reveal the relationship between him and Yang Kai, so he simply cupped his fists and said, "Young master, this old master missed you." Yang Kai coldly snorted, "I thought you would never come to see me again in this life." The old demon suddenly looked embarrassed and quickly said, "Of course not, this old master came here because there was an accident, haha. We'll talk about your business later." Yang Kai glared at him. Seeing this, old demon Ru Meng hurriedly stepped forward and stood beside Yang Kai, smiling as he glanced over at Qiu Yimeng, secretly nodding his head, secretly praising this little girl in his heart for being qualified to warm his young master's bed. Qiu Yimeng smiled and politely bowed to the old demon. Although this person gave her a somewhat uncomfortable feeling, in the end he had come to help Yang Kai. On the other hand, the Ghost King Valley and Treasure Instrument sect group were stunned. Along the way, both groups had thoroughly experienced the power and mystery of the old demon. After the Ghost King seals were blown into black mist by him, all of them fell into a deep sleep and were on the verge of evolving. Wu Yen of Treasure Instrument sect also no longer underestimated old demon. Whether it was his demeanor or his words, he was very respectful towards him. However, such a mysterious, powerful, cruel, and bloody person, when they saw Yang Kai, actually gave them a feeling of a mouse seeing a cat. What was going on? Everyone couldn't figure it out. "Brother Yang, long time no see." After a moment of silence, the Ghost King Valley group and Tao Yang stepped forward to greet him. "Many thanks." Yang Kai swept his eyes over the crowd. "It's been a long and tiring journey. Did you encounter anything abnormal along the way?" As he spoke, Yang Kai shot a glance towards old demon. He was really afraid that old demon would do something that would shock heaven and earth. No, it was just a small trouble. Fortunately, Senior Earth lent us a helping hand, so we were all safe and sound. Everyone replied in unison. After all, how could they have the nerve to reveal old demon's cruel methods now? Chapter 477. The atmosphere was harmonious, and everyone was exchanging pleasantries. Qiu Yimeng observed from the sidelines and found that the 7 or 8 cultivator with their hands wrapped in white cloth gave her a somewhat gloomy feeling and suddenly realized that these people should be the disciples of Ghost King Valley. However, the origins of the rest of these people made Qiu Yimeng excited. These people were actually artifact refiners from Treasure Instrument sect. In particular, Qiu Yimeng was no stranger to the name of Wu Yen. In Treasure Instrument sect, besides the sect master, this Wu Yen was the most skilled artifact refiner. It was rumored that in order to collect flames for artifact refining, Wu Yan had traveled all over the world, even going as far as to travel to other countries. It took him a full 20 years to obtain what he wanted and refine these heaven and earth spirit flames into his body, forcibly changing his physique and yuan qi attributes. This was a top artifact refiner who could refine mysterious grade mid-rank artifacts. In the world of artifact refining, his reputation was not inferior to that of Xiao Fu Xing in the world of alchemy. However, artifact refining was much more complex than alchemy. It took a long time and required many more materials. In addition, a cultivator's need for pills was much greater than their need for artifacts, so in terms of reputation, Wu Yan was inferior to Xiao Fu Sheng. Treasure Instrument Sect was also inferior to Medicine King's Valley. However, this still couldn't erase Wu Yan's super high attainments in artifact refining. In addition to him, Treasure Instrument Sect had brought nearly 20 disciples, all of whom were outstanding artifact refiners. How could Qiu Yimeng dare neglect? Together with Yang Kai, she arranged for the Ghost King Valley and Treasure Instrument Sect disciples to rest in the mansion, her whole face flushed with excitement. Her steps were light as a feather. Counting with her fingers, Qiu Yimeng discovered that the number of helpers Yang Kai had now gathered had reached an incredible level. Not to mention the dozen or so large and small forces, just the addition of Medicine King's Valley and Treasure Instrument Sect was enough to make everyone jealous. How did he do it? Looking at the figure of the man walking in front of her, the Qiu family's first young lady couldn't help biting her thin lip. She was intoxicated. With her head full of random thoughts, Qiu Yimeng followed Yang Kai all the way to the main hall, still unable to recover her senses. Yang Kai kept imagining the beautiful future in his mind, as if a new scroll of painting was slowly unfolding in his hands. That was the beautiful scene of Yang Kai conquering his brothers and winning the inheritance war to become the Yang family patriarch. His breathing quickened. Once again, she rejoiced at her decision to leave her family to help him. This old servant greets the young master. Just as she was in a daze, a voice suddenly reached her ears, causing Qiu Yimeng to be startled. Turning her head, she couldn't help being dumbfounded. She found that the middle-aged man who was respected by Ghost King Valley and Treasure Instrument Sects Wu Yan was actually kneeling on the ground, his expression respectful, his head bowed. Old servant? Young master? Qiu Yimeng couldn't help but open her mouth and cover it with her hand, her beautiful eyes trembling. Even though she didn't know what level of expert the old demon was, she was confident in her ability. However, the pressure she felt from the old demon was even greater than that of the blood warriors in the mansion. In other words, this middle-aged man with a gloomy aura was definitely stronger than the blood warriors. But at this moment, he was actually making such a humble gesture and even calling himself old servant? Even the blood warriors who followed Yang Kai. None of them had ever bowed so low, right? Staring at Yang Kai blankly, Qiu Yimeng was surprised to find that his expression was indifferent, as if he didn't feel the slightest discomfort, simply saying, "Get up, there's no need to act like this between you and me." "Many thanks, young master." The middle-aged man stood up happily, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Noticing Qiu Yimeng's surprise, the old demon smiled faintly. "Little girl, we're not outsiders, so I won't hide my relationship with the young master from you, but please don't reveal it, our young master usually keeps a low profile." Qiu Yimeng quickly converged her expression and solemnly said, "Senior can rest assured." "Yahem, I didn't see anything, you can continue chatting." In fact, at this time, it was best to leave quickly. The fewer secrets one knew, the safer one would be. However, the powerful curiosity of a woman's nature caused Qiu Yimeng to become rooted in place, unable to move. Secretly wondering, how could this mysterious and powerful master's relationship with Yang Kai really be like that of a servant to a master? How could this smelly brat deserve such treatment? "How is your body?" Yang Kai didn't drive Qiu Yimeng away. After all, there was still a long way to go. Qiu Yimeng was the second in command in the mansion, so his relationship with the old demon certainly couldn't be hidden from her. Instead of making her suspect, it was better to open up. Listening to Yang Kai's question, The old demon suddenly showed a grateful expression, quickly replying, "After a few months of activity, my condition has stabilized and there shouldn't be any problems for at least 30 years. What about after 30 years? Yang Kai furrowed his brow. Regarding his soul entering another person's body, Yang Kai also felt that it was a bit strange, and he didn't understand the mysteries involved. That will depend on old servant's efforts. If I can perfectly integrate with this body, there will be no need to change it in the future, but if I can't, after 30 years, I will have to find another suitable one. If there's anything I can help with, don't hesitate to ask." Yang Kai nodded lightly. Between him and the old demon, there was no need to be polite. "Many thanks, young master. For the time being, there won't be any problems." "Good, if you don't have anything else to say, go meet someone." Meng Wuya. Yang Kai's mouth curled up slightly as he observed the old demon's expression. Sure enough, he found that the old man's expression had changed slightly, revealing a look of dread. Yang Kai knew that Meng Wuya's methods had made the old demon somewhat apprehensive, so he was even more certain that Treasurer Meng wasn't as simple as he thought. "That old bastard!" The old demon ground his teeth in hatred. "Wait for old servant to go and reason with him, then we'll settle old and new grievances." Saying so, he grinned meaningfully. "Young master, you play with this girl, old servant will go find him." Yang Kai's face went black as he waved his hand. The old demon's figure flickered and disappeared. Only the two of them remained in the hall. "Can I ask who this senior is?" Chiu Yimeng asked curiously. Yang Kai shook his head. "Forget it, you're always so secretive about everything you do." "I'm used to it." Chiu Yimeng snorted. "How is their progress in refining their artifacts?" Yang Kai looked at her. These past few days, while he had been refining his artifacts, so had everyone else. "Almost. In 2 days, most of them should be able to come out." Chiu Yimeng grinned. "What about you? How's your progress?" "I just finished refining one." "So fast?" Chiu Yimeng's beautiful face changed slightly. All of the artifacts Yang Kai had obtained were mysterious grade, so with his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to refine them. 5 days was definitely not enough. The shock only lasted for a moment before Chiu Yimeng regained her composure. This young man had brought her too many miracles. Chiu Yimeng gradually became immune to this. "Since the people from Treasure Instrument Sect are here, you'll also be busy. I've already marked out a place for artifact refining. You can arrange it for them. As for the materials, we've already accumulated a lot. In addition, inform the pill room to refine some pills that can quickly restore Yuan Qi. Artifact refining also consumes Yuan Qi, so don't let the artifact refiners tire themselves." "I know." "Then that's all." Yang Kai nodded, stood up, and walked inside. Looking at his gradually disappearing back, Chiu Yimeng opened her mouth. She didn't know why, but these days she especially wanted to say a few more words to him. After Yang Kai left, Chiu Yimeng shook her head with a wry smile. She gradually realized the mysteries of this man had become her Achilles' heel. Her curiosity drove her to dig out all the secrets in the depths of this man's heart in order to satisfy herself. The next day, Yang Kai came to the residence of Treasure Instrument Sects people. After bargaining with Wu Yen for a while, the two sides reached a consensus. Treasure Instrument Sect was different from Medicine King's Valley. Medicine King's Valley's people had come to learn the alchemic way from Xia Ningchang, but Treasure Instrument Sect wanted to seek protection. Tao Yang being able to persuade Wu Yen to participate in the inheritance war was also a condition for Yang Kai. When Yang Kai really became the patriarch of the Yang family, he would have to declare to the outside world that Treasure Instrument Sect was under his protection. If Yang Kai didn't win the inheritance war, he would have to use his own strength in the future to protect Treasure Instrument Sect from being harassed by other forces. Yang Kai agreed to each of these conditions. Tao Yang was full of embarrassment, but there was nothing he could do. This matter was related to the future stability of the sect. A young disciple like him had no right to speak. After reaching an agreement, everyone from Treasure Instrument Sect immediately began working on their artifact refining business. Wu Yan had also said that the artifacts Yang Kai had obtained from Pijing Lake a few days ago could be refined by him, perhaps they could be upgraded to a higher grade. Even if they couldn't be upgraded, they would at least be more useful than before. He had the ability to do so. Yang Kai was greatly moved. Refining an artifact was completely different from refining an artifact. The former was refining an artifact on the basis of a finished artifact, removing the impurities and preserving the essences, which would undoubtedly save a lot of time, energy, and materials. Immediately, Yang Kai had Qiu Yimeng spread the word that any cultivator who had such intentions or needs could go to Treasure Instrument Sect. After dealing with Treasure Instrument Sect's affairs, Yang Kai rushed to Meng Wuya's room without stopping. The old demon had gone to see Meng Wuya yesterday, but until now there had been no news. He didn't know what these two old farts were up to, so Yang Kai was quite worried. If they were to really fight, his mansion would probably be annihilated in an instant. Soon, Yang Kai found that his worries were superfluous. After entering Treasurer Meng's room, he only saw the old demon and Meng Wuya sitting across from each other, both of them grinning at each other as if they were exchanging blows. The atmosphere was quite strange. Did the two of you have a good chat? Yang Kai inserted himself and asked with a smile. Not bad. Meng Wuya nodded lightly. The old demon's expression was unreadable and he didn't deny it, probably having suffered a loss. Now that we've talked, there's something I want to ask you. Yang Kai's expression became serious. What matter does young master have? The old demon quickly asked. It's about that mysterious master. Yang Kai glanced over at Meng Wuya. Seeing this, Treasurer Meng couldn't help but frown, suddenly realizing what he wanted to say. Last time, both he and Yang Kai had sensed the aura of that mysterious master at the same time, but by the time Yang Kai had arrived, that mysterious master had already escaped. In Pijing Lake, that mysterious master had once again appeared and snatched a mysterious great artifact. The existence of this person made Yang Kai feel like a fish bone was stuck in his throat. He had to get rid of it. Chapter 478. The old demon didn't know much about this mysterious master, so he asked curiously. Kai Yang briefly recounted the events of the 2 times he had fought with him. After the old demon listened, he was a little surprised and stared at Meng Wuya in amazement. Even you weren't able to see through that guy's background? Treasurer Meng slowly shook his head. That person has a special aura that isolates him from the outside world. I estimate that even an above immortal ascension boundary master would find it difficult to spy on him. If this person wants to hide, no one can find him. Amazing! The old demon praised before chuckling meaningfully, but from the way this guy fought with Ying Jiao and young master, his strength doesn't seem to be very good. Near the pill room, this man had been struck by Ying Jiao's dancing shadow strike and suffered some minor injuries. Above Pijing Lake, when Yang Kai attacked him with his sword, this man hadn't been able to completely avoid it. If his strength was really on the same level as Meng Wuya and the old demon, this situation wouldn't have happened. Yang Kai nodded lightly, but he's not bad, he's definitely a master. What does young master want to do? The old demon looked excited as he grinned. I'll say this first, don't expect this old master to intervene in this matter. Meng Wuya glanced over at Yang Kai. This old master is here solely to protect that little girl Ning Chang. This old master won't meddle in the affairs of War City. Saying so, he muttered, this old master is already so old, he doesn't have the face to intervene in the affairs of the younger generation. I didn't ask you to intervene. Yang Kai chuckled. I just want to ask if the two of you have any good ideas on how to uncover that person from the shadows. Meng Wuya shook his head slightly. The old demon was also suddenly speechless. Even Meng Wuya couldn't do anything to that person, so the old demon didn't dare make any guarantees. Unless that person appeared in Yang Kai's mansion again, there would be a chance, but last time they had already alerted the enemy. As long as that person's mind was still working properly, he shouldn't act in the near future. Young master, we don't have any information on that person. Old servant can't cook without rice. The old demon grinned meaningfully. Information, there is one. Yang Kai hesitated and suddenly said, What? Meng Wuya and Old Demon both looked over at the same time. She's a woman. Yang Kai's eyes. How do you know? Treasurer Meng frowned. Yang Kai smiled lightly and pulled a strand of black hair demon's hair out of his sleeve. He placed it in front of the two and said, I cut this off from her body at Pajing Lake. He paused for a moment before continuing, however, I don't know about her hair. Meng hair, Meng's Meng Wu hair. Both Meng Wuya and Old Demon turned to look at this strand of black hair at the same time and couldn't help feeling astonished. The reason for that was because that strand of black hair was completely different from the hair of ordinary women. Ordinary people, regardless of whether they were men or women, would have black hair. This strand of hair was light blue. Like the clear water of a lake, it was soft and smooth. Only this strand of hair was unique. After being stunned for a moment, Meng Wuya and the Old Demon couldn't help but look at each other with strange expressions on their faces. Yang Kai observed their expressions. He secretly guessed that they had thought of something. After a moment of silence, Meng Wuya said, I don't know who this woman is. I've never heard of anyone with this kind of hair, but I guess it has something to do with her cultivation method and physique. Yang Kai, don't underestimate this person. This woman may have an extraordinary background. Meng Wuya's words had a hidden meaning. Although Yang Kai didn't point it out, he still nodded with a dignified expression. He didn't have any intention of underestimating this woman. The Old Demon suddenly laughed mischievously. Young master, if this strand of hair was really cut off from that person, then Old Servant may have a way to find her. Yang Kai was overjoyed. Are you sure? Jia. Chasing souls and taking lives is Old Servant's specialty. With this strand of hair cut off from her body, she won't be able to hide from Old Servant. The Old Demon said confidently. Evil devil cultivator. Meng Wuya snorted. Not only did the Old Demon not care, but his smile became even more joyful. Yang Kai didn't care what method he used, as long as he could find that mysterious woman. He asked anxiously, how long will it take? About 10 days, but it also depends on luck. If that woman doesn't come close to Old Servant, then Old Servant won't be able to find her. Then prepare as soon as possible. Yang Kai said in a deep voice. No matter what purpose that woman had for approaching the alchemy room, since she didn't succeed the first time, she would definitely try a second time. Moreover, judging from her appearance at Pajing Lake, this woman was definitely a bold and reckless person who didn't put the heroes of the world in her eyes. Such a person was confident and arrogant and wouldn't shrink back because of a small setback. Once she found a way to completely hide her aura, she would definitely come again. The next time she came, it would be time for Yang Kai to surrender. Handing the strand of light blue hair to the Old Demon, Yang Kai hurriedly left. Near the artifact refining room, Yang Kai found Qiu Yimeng, who was busy, and secretly whispered a few words to her. No one knew what Yang Kai said to her, but all they saw was Qiu Yimeng's agitated expression, her attitude firm, and her refusal to release Yang Kai's arm. The Qiu family's first young lady rarely did anything impolite. Her noble birth and good upbringing gave her an extraordinary upbringing, so in front of so many people, she held onto Yang Kai's arm and refused to let go, as if Yang Kai had abandoned her, causing all the passing cultivators to secretly speculate. In the end, Yang Kai broke free from Qiu Yimeng's grasp and strode away, leaving behind the Qiu family's first young lady, who stomped her feet angrily. Young Lady Qiu, what happened to my junior brother? Lan Chu Dai, who had just finished refining an artifact, came out for a breath of fresh air and happened to see this scene, so she couldn't help but be curious. Nothing. Qiu Yimeng quickly restrained her expression and slowly shook her head. Lan Chu Dai smiled slightly and no longer asked, knowing that with her current status, she was not qualified to know too many high-level secrets. On the other side, the Hu sisters were also looking out the window and saw this scene. Did you see that? That stinky man is a pervert. In front of so many people, he actually dared to flirt with that woman surnamed Qiu. How shameless! Little sister, be careful, don't fall for his tricks. Hu Jiao Air gnashed her teeth as she warned her younger sister. Hu Mei Air held her chin in her hand as her mind wandered around the 9 heavens, ignoring her warning. Seeing her younger sister's infatuated appearance, Hu Jiao couldn't help but shake her head and sigh. Stretching out her jade hand, she pinched her younger sister's delicate nose and shook it from side to side. Cultivate. Oh. Hu Mei reluctantly withdrew her gaze. Although Blood Battle Gang and Storm Hall had come to seek refuge in Yang Kai's mansion later, Qiu Yimeng still didn't treat them unfairly. With the help of the mysterious grade pills provided by the pill room, the Hu sisters' cultivation progress was much faster than before. In just a few days, their twin Qi shared spirit divine art was on the verge of a breakthrough. Moreover, after taking these pills, the Hu sisters clearly felt that there seemed to be some subtle changes inside their bodies. It was easier for them to absorb world energy than before, their meridians were firmer and more stable, and their secret arts were faster than before. Yang Kai's aptitude and strength made them feel pressure, and they knew that if they didn't work hard, they would only be left far behind. Naturally, they didn't dare to slack off in their cultivation. Night fell, east of War City, Yang Wei's mansion. Yang Wei, who was refining the mysterious grade artifact he had just obtained a few days ago, suddenly heard a knock on the door. Frowning, he asked, "What's the matter?" "Eldest young lord, someone has come to visit." The voice of the Meng family's Meng Shan came from outside with a strange tone. "Who is it?" Yang Wei's eyes flashed. He was refining a mysterious grade artifact. Meng Shan didn't know. If it weren't for the identity of this visitor being extraordinary, he would never have bothered him. What kind of person could make Meng Shanyi's tone become so strange? "I think it's probably Yang Kai." "Ninth brother?" Yang Wei's voice suddenly rose a few octaves, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Soon, the door opened and Yang Wei appeared in front of Meng Shan-yi with a solemn expression, his hands crossed behind his back as he asked, "Is it really ninth brother?" Meng Shan-yi smiled bitterly. "I didn't see clearly, but the one next to him was Senior Ingjiu. I think that besides Yang Kai, Ingjiu wouldn't have followed him." Yang Wei's expression became solemn as he nodded. "Since Ingjiu is here, it must be ninth brother." After a pause, he chuckled, acting so boldly, "I really can't see through ninth brother." Although he had deliberately shown goodwill during the artifact snatching battle at Pajing Lake, in the end, the two of them were still rivals. Yang Kai daring to come to his house with only Ingjiu, his courage was not ordinary. "Eldest young lord, this is an opportunity," Meng Shan-yi said in a low voice, his expression eager. "Judging from Yang Kai's performance since the beginning of the Inheritance War until now, he will definitely be a stronger enemy than second young master in the future. We might as well take advantage of this opportunity to take advantage of him tonight." Saying so, he gestured with his hand. Yang Wei sneered and slowly shook his head. "Eldest young lord." Meng Shanyi's tone became urgent, obviously not understanding why Yang Wei didn't grasp such a good opportunity. To achieve great things, one shouldn't bother with trifles. If we don't eliminate him now, I'm afraid there won't be another chance. From the beginning, no one was optimistic about Yang Kai's chances, but now his reputation was like the sun in the sky, and his voice was rising day by day. The changes and development of Yang Kai's house were almost astonishing. His advantages were expanding step by step, and as time passed, this advantage would only grow larger and larger until he could annex and destroy all his enemies and become the ultimate victor. Meng Shan-yi seemed to have already seen that day coming. He was Yang Wei's ally, how could he not be anxious? But the eldest young lord had let go of such a great opportunity in front of him and not taken advantage of it, as if he was worried about his brotherly feelings. "I have my own plans, there's no need to say more." Yang Wei waved his hand and strode away. Meng Shan-yi was depressed, but after thinking about it for a moment, his expression suddenly became firm, turned around, and quickly disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 479. Inside the main hall, Yang Kai wore a black robe that wrapped around his entire body as he sat quietly and waited. Behind him, Ingjiu stood indifferently, his divine sense roaming as he vigilantly scanned the surroundings. Looking at Yang Kai's calm face, Ingjiu couldn't help secretly admiring him. When night fell, Yang Kai suddenly asked him to follow him out the door. Jiao didn't ask where they were going, but after the two of them sneaked into the house, they were suddenly startled. The place Yang Kai was going to was actually Yang Wei's mansion. Not daring to take this lightly, Jiao became extremely vigilant. Thinking back to the dispute between the little lord and Qiu Yimeng during the day, Jiao suddenly understood that Qiu Yimeng must have also been opposed to Yang Kai's approach, not taking her own safety seriously. That was why she had disregarded the etiquette of the Qiu family's first young lady. Since entering the main hall, Jiao had noticed several divine senses sweeping the area, but he hadn't been able to find a single trace of anyone. Even Yang Wei hadn't appeared. Jiao knew that the masters from Yang Wei's mansion were secretly observing this place. Not only did Jiao know this, but the little lord was also aware, but he still remained calm and collected. Ninth brother, your courage isn't small, actually daring to come to my house alone. Aren't you afraid I'll make you stay? A cold voice suddenly came from inside, echoing endlessly in the main hall, causing everyone's eardrums to tremble. Or, do you think there's no one in my house? Yang Kai only felt his ears fill with Yang Wei's roar, and at the same time, a burst of spiritual energy struck him, but without any murderous intent. Obviously it was just a probe. A few days ago, when Yang Kai fought with Lu Qingyao, Yang Wei had watched from 1,000 meters away. Not being able to feel Yang Kai's strength, he was naturally curious about Yang Kai's abilities. Yang Kai remained indifferent, allowing this burst of spiritual energy to penetrate his mind, chuckling lightly. Afraid? If Big Brother would do that, I wouldn't have come. Ha! Yang Wei laughed, finally appearing from the darkness and arriving in front of Yang Kai. Jiao couldn't help narrowing his eyes. Surprisingly, he found that Yang Wei had come here alone, without even a single blood warrior around him. Although there were many masters guarding this side hall, Jiao was confident that if he wanted to capture Yang Wei, it would be a piece of cake. These two brothers? Jiao shook his head slightly. They really trusted each other more than the other. Yang Kai took off the hat covering his head, revealing his original face. He smiled at Yang Wei, who clapped his hands, and immediately a maidservant served tea. After the maidservant left, Yang Kai said, Big Brother, this is the first time we've talked like this, right? Not bad. Yang Wei nodded. Ever since he was young, Yang Wei gave people a feeling of loneliness. He wasn't close to any of his brothers. It was Yang Kai's first time talking to him face to face. Ninth brother, what do you want to do this time? Yang Wei went straight to the point. Obviously, he had some guesses in his heart. Yes. Yang Kai nodded and took a deep breath. The family is very dissatisfied with our progress, otherwise, they wouldn't have invested 1,000 artifacts to speed up the process. Since they want us to move faster, we have to move faster. Then we can only be a little faster. Otherwise, they will have more backup plans to rush us. Big Brother should also understand, right? I understand, and I think the others also understand. Yang Wei nodded. That's why, if we don't act now, others will only take the initiative. Yang Kai said in a low voice. The attitude of the family was already very obvious. The investment of 1,000 artifacts had already conveyed a clear message, which everyone understood. Once the various forces had digested this batch of artifacts, there would definitely be people who couldn't hold back and took action. Who does Big Brother think will be the first target? Yang Wei glanced at him and said, Is there a need to ask such an obvious question? If it's not you, it's me. I think so too. Yang Kai grinned. Among the remaining 6 Yang family young lords, Yang Zhao and Yang Kong were blood brothers, and Yang Xin and Yang Ying were also blood brothers. Although they were still rivals, when there were other enemies in the inheritance war, they would still help each other. If there really was a big move, it would definitely be these two pairs of brothers who would join forces to attack, and the target would be Yang Kai or Yang Wei. After all, Yang Wei was the eldest brother. On the first night of the inheritance war, he had been polite to his brothers, so the 4 of them definitely wouldn't attack him first. In less than 10 days, Yang Kai was bound to be attacked from all sides. His limelight was too great, and he had even snatched 2 mysterious grade artifacts a few days ago, so how could his brothers give him time to digest them? Of these 4, if any one of them had help, Yang Kai wouldn't put them in his eyes, but if the four of them joined forces, he would have to pay a great price to defend himself. Unless Meng Wuya and the old demon joined forces, there was a possibility of reducing losses. It was because of this realization that Yang Kai had rushed to Yang Wei's house that night to discuss this matter. Who do you want to attack? Yang Wei asked with slight excitement. Fifth brother. Yang Kai grinned. Yang Wei was stunned, but after thinking for a while he suddenly realized something and coldly snorted. Fifth brother choosing Tu Feng and Tang Yuxian as his followers was an unwise move. In terms of strength among the remaining 6 brothers, Yang Kong was definitely not the weakest, but Yang Kai still chose him as the first target, obviously because of Tu Feng and Tang Yuxian's blood warrior pair. If it weren't for the accident that occurred before the start of the Inheritance War, Tu Feng and Tang Yuxian would now be following Yang Kai. Yang Kai targeting them like this was obviously because he cared about Tu Feng and Tang Yuxian. What do you want eldest brother to do? Yang Wei asked in a deep voice. Just restrain second brother. I'm afraid second brother will try to stir up trouble when he hears the news. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. That's not a problem. Yang Wei nodded, but soon smiled slyly. But what benefits does eldest brother gain by doing this? Yang Wei obviously wanted to ask for some tangible benefits. He and Yang Kai were still rivals, so it was impossible for him to consume his strength to help Yang Kai for free. Even if he was willing to do so, his subordinates wouldn't be willing. Since Yang Kai wanted Yang Wei to lead his people to restrain Yang Zhao, he had to come up with enough chips and sincerity. Even blood brothers had to settle accounts clearly. What does eldest brother want? Yang Kai had already considered this issue before coming here, so he wasn't surprised to hear it now. Lightly coughing, Yang Wei smiled and said, Eldest brother is a little jealous of the alchemists in your house. I don't want too many, just 5 of them. How about it? Yang Kai couldn't help laughing. Eldest brother, your appetite is too big. Not big, right? Yang Wei smiled. You have 30 alchemists in your house, I only want 5. I can't make that decision. Yang Kai shook his head. You know what kind of temperament those alchemists have. Although they perform alchemy in my house, I can't order them around. How about this? How about I give eldest brother a batch of mysterious grade pills? Mysterious grade pills? Yang Wei heard this and couldn't help shaking his head and smiling bitterly. Mysterious grade pills, 9th brother, you really are generous. All right, eldest brother agrees. He also knew that asking for 5 alchemists from Medicine King's Valley was impossible. Asking for such a condition was simply asking for a lower price. His expression becoming solemn, Yang Kai quickly asked, When do we begin? Tomorrow night. Yang Wei frowned, a trace of doubt appearing on his face. He hadn't expected Yang Kai's actions to be so urgent. There was only 1 day left, so according to normal circumstances, many cultivators would have refined the artifacts they had snatched a few days ago into their bodies by tomorrow. Yang Kai choosing this time to make a move was obviously because he wanted to rely on the assistance these artifacts would bring him. But would he be able to use the mysterious grade artifacts he had obtained? Yang Kai's mysterious grade artifact would take at least 8 days to completely refine. Presumably the same was true for everyone else. I'll wait for your news. Yang Wei didn't dwell on this matter. When an artifact was usable, everyone would definitely be able to use it, but if it wasn't, no one would be able to use it. No matter what, everyone was in an equal position. As he spoke, he glanced over at Ing Jiao, intentionally or unintentionally, a deep sense of doubt flashing across his eyes. During the artifact snatching battle at Pajing Lake, 6 blood warriors had been affected by the Qi binding seal, and Ing Jiao was one of them. Yang Wei didn't understand why he would come to his house with Yang Kai now, and from the looks of it, he didn't seem to be affected by the Qi binding seal. What did this mean? Could it be that he had already lifted the Qi binding seal? Then it's settled. Yang Kai slowly stood up and sneered meaningfully. Now that we've finished talking business, let's talk about something else. Yang Wei's expression froze. What's the point of hiding? Hurry up and come out. Yang Kai glanced around coldly and shouted. At the same time, Ing Jiao's figure suddenly faded into thin air, disappearing as if he had never existed. Yang Wei's expression suddenly changed as he scanned his surroundings, his face suddenly becoming pale. Asterisk schwa schwa schwa. Asterisk a number of figures suddenly appeared from all directions and surrounded Yang Kai. From the front door of the side hall, Meng Shan-yi stepped in gracefully, a leisurely expression on his face. Shan-yi. Yang Wei's expression became ugly as he shouted, "What do you want to do?" As he spoke, Yang Wei's yuan qi surged violently as he glared at Meng Shan. Meng Shan-yi glanced at Yang Wei, grit his teeth, and cupped his fists. "Eldest young lord, please forgive me. This Shan-yi acted on my own accord and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to keep ninth young lord here." Saying so, he turned to look at Yang Kai and said, "Ninth young lord, please don't blame this Meng for being vicious. This was a rare opportunity you brought to me. If this Meng did not grasp it properly, it would be a shame. Eldest young lord did not know about this matter. It was all this Meng's own idea. If you want to retaliate in the future, please come at this Meng." Yang Kai chuckled. "Of course eldest brother doesn't know. If he did, he wouldn't have talked so much with me." Hearing this, Meng Shan-yi nodded gently. "It's good that ninth young lord understands." Yang Wei remained expressionless, his expression gloomy as he took a deep breath and said, "Shan-yi, you've made a mistake this time." Meng Shan-yi smiled bitterly. "Eldest young lord, if you can't bring yourself to do it, this Shan-yi will do it for you." "That's not what I'm talking about." Yang Wei slowly shook his head, a look of disappointment on his face. "Do you think ninth young lord dares to come alone without any support? Do you think these people can keep him here?" Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.